Here we are, the first podcast in December, and why not start this month off right with a Christmas song? This is Benjiphonik, a very Benji Christmas.
Christmas is the time of year when all the girls and boys dream about a world that's filled with happiness and joy. Christmas!
It's that time of the year, everybody getting high on Christmas cheer.
Christmas!
And everybody gets along when you're singing all together to a Christmas song.
Yo.
Christmas is that time of the year. Everybody getting high on holiday cheer. December 24th, I needed a gift. Driving real fast with that Tokyo drift. When a red Corvette took my spot and I thought, I'm gonna get into a fight in a shopping mall parking lot. Dude jumped out, man he was fly. Had a red suede suit with a sparkle in his eye. He said, I am a man of a saintly persuasion and I need a little help with some home invasions. Holy nutcrackers, it was Santa Claus. GM said, I need an MC to ride with me. So I jumped right in and Santa gave me the business. Tonight you're gonna learn the true meaning of Christmas.
Christmas is the time of year when all the girls and boys,
All the girls and the
dream
boys,
about a world that's filled with happiness and joy.
happiness and joy. It's that time of the year, everybody getting high on Christmas cheer.
Christmas!
Everybody gets along when you're singing all together in a Christmas song. Christmas is that time of the year.
Yo.
Everybody getting high on holiday cheer. He said, Benji, can I give you just a little advice? It ain't about the presents or the pumpkin spice. It's about a baby wrapped in cloth, lying in a manger. That's an animal trough. The baby brought a crazy kind of message of love, and the angels got to singing up in heaven above. A terrestrial gift with a celestial sign, spreading grace and goodwill towards all of mankind. I said, wait, what about the tree and the lights and the mistletoe hung and the kissing all night? Said, yeah, well, it's about that too, but it can mean something different to me and to you.
Christmas is the time of year when all the girls and
All the
boys
girls and the
dream
boys,
about a world that's filled with happiness and joy.
happiness and joy. It's that time of the year, everybody getting high on Christmas cheer.
Christmas!
Everybody gets along when you're singing all together to a Christmas song.
Christmas!
It's that time of the year, everybody getting high on Christmas cheer.
Christmas!
Everybody gets along when you're singing all together in a Christmas song. Yeah. Christmas is that time of the year. Everybody getting high on Christmas cheer. Yo, Christmas is that time of the year. Everybody getting high on Christmas cheer.
And then I walked down that bridge knowing I was going to take my life. Something I would have never, ever believed I would even intend. But when I got out there, and I got plenty far enough out, all I could think of in my mind was Willow. You know, looking at her face as I closed the door of the car. Is she going to be okay? Is somebody going to find her? Is somebody going to love her? It was windy, it was cold, and as I put my hands on the rail and started to get up there, and I could just hear Willow barking. Now, it would have been impossible, because this is so far away, but in my mind, I could hear her calling me back.
This is Chit Chat, the Encouraging One Another podcast, where it's all about encouragement.
Hello, and welcome to Chit Chat, the encouraging one another podcast. As promised, each and every week, we have uplifting, fun conversations with people from all over the world. Today, my guest is the author of the book called Breakfast at Sally's, One Man's Inspirational Journey, and a book which he received both local and national attention. The autobiography stories chronicles a man's journey wandering the streets of Bremerton, Washington. He was sleeping in church parking lots and parks and finding warm food and acceptance at the local Salvation Army chapter. His story is powerful and inspirational. In his book, he shares about his companion, his dog Willow, as he befriends a cast of characters who, despite their flaws, are fundamentally lovable and challenge the stereotypical view of the homeless. This really is a remarkable, powerful, written, inspiring book, and somehow frequently quite funny at times. A must-read of homeless determination and redemption. I had a chance a number of years ago to meet Richard LeMieux, and we had a great conversation. And this interview, we actually were at Johnny's Coffee in Silverdale, Washington. So you'll hear a little ambient background music. So get back and relax. This is Richard LeMieux here on the Chit Chat Encouraging One Another podcast. I'm with Richard LeMieux today on Chit Chat Encouraging One Another podcast. We're going to talk about his book and his journey. And I'm so excited to have him on and dive into some fun, great conversations. Before we dive into some great conversations, I like to ask 5 icebreaker questions, and those little portions brought to you by Tequiza. Tequiza is a taco shop in the mall here.
Oh, great.
They have 5 kinds of tacos, so I based it on 5 questions.
There you go. That's
Do
great.
you love some tacos?
Yes, of course.
But your many travels, you probably had a good variety of tacos.
Everywhere. I've gone around the country with tacos.
What food? Question number 1. What food do you love the most that people might find a little odd?
Well, I'm now 79 years old, so here's how I do my food. I have fish one night, steak the next night, chicken the next night, maybe a pork sandwich, but I try and keep a variety. I like to cook myself at home. After traveling so much, I ate at so many different restaurants, everywhere from the Waldorf Astoria in New York to a hamburger shop to a hot dog with some homeless people in a park.
Oh, wow.
I like to cook salmon at home.
Okay. And, homemade Southern food. I mean,
that's good. Yeah, just make my stuff. Yeah.
There you go. What's your earliest childhood memory you remember? A few years ago.
Well, it's pretty good, actually. You know, at age 79, I'm always amazed how I can remember something that's going clear back. But I remember I grew up in a little town called Urbana, Ohio, which is right about 40 minutes from Columbus. Okay. But it's a town of about 11,000 people. And I do remember getting on my bike and going fishing in Factory Pond with my buddies, Dennis Phillips, and I'd say that's like, we had to be about 9 or 10 years old, maybe. And so back in those days, it was really interesting because kids could get on their bicycles and go to a pond and go fishing by themselves and have a good time and catch little crappies or little bluegills.
Yep.
And I remember the process so much because that's as little kids we had. And I'm actually writing another book. It's a novel which is called Going Back to Factory Pond.
Oh, wow.
And
little sneak peek.
Yeah. But I do remember that. And that's about where I go back as far as I can go. But you know, every once in a while you'll have a flashback with something when you do something. I used to go catch minnows for fishing in a little creek. And one time I had a jar. I had a jar, and I put it down into the water and hit a rock, and I cut myself, and I can still see the little scar where it's there. So that was about the same time, 8 or 9 years old. So. And I compare that to today, where you don't see little kids on bikes running around, and with fishing poles on their back.
Yep.
And I can remember having my bicycle jeans getting caught in the chain.
Shades, yep.
So those are all wonderful memories in many ways, and it's in my new book when I get it finished.
Yeah, I grew up in Arkansas. We went fishing a lot. I had my own crickets. I had found my own worms.
Dug your own worms?
Yep. And my dad was a big fisherman, and my grandparents were fishermen, so we always on the lake.
Yep. And
I miss those days.
We used to take a rope, actually, or like a real cheap stringer, and we'd fill that thing up with sunfish, rock crappies and bluegill, and we'd take them home, and my mother says, if you're gonna eat those things, you gotta clean them all. And of course, each little fish had about one bite, 1 or 2 bites.
The question number 3: if you have your own talk show, you can invite anyone on your talk show, living or deceased. Who would be your first couple of guests that you'd love to just have sit down and just talk to?
Well, I wish they were still alive, but Robin Williams would be my number one guy to talk to about a lot of things.
Oh my goodness!
And of course, in politics, I would like to sit down and talk to Barack Obama.
Okay.
Those would be my two. One in politics, one in a different type of politics.
Yep.
And those are I would say my top 2.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you could add another face to Mount Rushmore, you had the 4 already. Who would you add another face up there with them?
Well, with the knowledge I have about Mount Rushmore and the issues of our current day of woke and other things that go along with that, I don't think I'd add anybody.
Okay.
Of course, if it was absolutely necessary, any way possible, I would maybe put Barack Obama on there because he was our quote first black president, but that is a monument of the past, where you were being. When I graduated from Ohio State, I had a teaching degree, and I was going to become a high school teacher.
Oh wow.
Of history and social studies. But because I was a good athlete in high school and in college, I got an opportunity to be a sports writer in Springfield, Ohio, which at that time was 150,000 people, or more actually. And it was a big newspaper. We had eight sports writers on our staff. We used to, I used to cover all kinds of things, and because of that history knowledge, though, going back to the reason I mentioned that, there's so much about monuments nowadays. There's the Washington Monument. If you've ever been to Washington D.C. for anything,
I never have been.
I would suggest during your lifetime get a chance to go.
I lined up a guest in January. He does the unknown soldier. He coordinates that. So
that's
I'm
wonderful.
really excited to talk to that person. And that's my goal. I'd love to go there.
Yeah.
My dad was a Vietnam veteran in the Army. I was in the Navy. So I think hopefully, I can pass. I would love to go see the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier.
Yeah,
that'd be so powerful.
That would be well worth it. I mean, the Lincoln Memorial is a beautiful moment. I suggest you go at night when the lights are all out. But yeah. So to answer that question, maybe someday they'll put another face on there, and when I grew up, when I went to first of all, when I graduated from high school, I went to Urbana College. Then I went to Wilmington College, played 1 year of football there. Then I transferred to Ohio State. The issue of that process was that Wilmington College was a little Quaker school down in southern Ohio. And there were still a lot of racial issues in that part of it then. And if you know, in 1961 I graduated from high school, and at that time there were black football players on my team, so I had no prejudice, so to speak.
Yep.
But when I first ran into it, realizing that in 1964 and 65, Ohio State could not go play, say, Texas, or Alabama, or Mississippi State, or many of those southern schools. As a sports writer, I saw it. because they have black players, and the racial and sports as a whole was one of the elements that today, if you go back to when I graduated from high school and college, if Alabama did have a black player, which they didn't, but they would say, "Oh, look at that," and use the N-word.
Right.
Where today, they're happy to have as many black players as they got because they are superior in many cases.
They're very gifted, sure.
Yeah, in many cases.
I still love that movie, Remember the Titans, with Coach Boone, and that's just a powerful movie. And I'd love to see some of those guys, on who played those characters.
That's right.
This is so powerful.
Yeah, and you look at it, and even in government today, there are few black people that are in the Congress or the Senate, if you want. And Barack Obama, getting back to that subject of the monuments.
And you mentioned
Was
sports
the first.
writing. You mentioned sports writing.
Yeah.
What's one of those biggest sports events you remember writing? Doing.
Well, I covered, working at that kind of newspaper, I covered everything from dog shows to boxing in Cincinnati. AAU boxing was a big deal in Cincinnati, Cincinnati, Louisville. But I did cover the Cincinnati Reds, and I was there when they had Johnny Bench and Pete Rose.
The Red Machine.
Big Red Machine when they won the World Series, which was probably as good as it gets. But I also covered what they call, I covered tennis. I covered junior tennis. And because of that, there were big tournaments. One of them was a big tournament. It was called the Western Open Championships for juniors. So I interviewed Jimmy Connors when he was 16 and 18 years old, and John McEnroe when he was 16 years old. And I covered the first 2 or 3 years before I moved of the APT tennis tournament in Cincinnati, Ohio, when Jimmy Connors and John McEnroe were then grown up boys.
Wow,
they were older, we'll put it that way.
You have a favorite athlete you guys had a chance to talk with?
Gosh, I would say that Johnny Bench. I interviewed Johnny Bench and Pete Rose. But I also, although he wasn't a participant at that particular time, he was trying to bring black. Arthur Ashe was trying to bring black players into tennis, which now, of course, you see. But back in those days, it was a country club thing, as was golf. And so I'd say that I interviewed Arthur Ashe when he brought boys from the South to play in those types of tennis.
Wow.
So it was and in a station wagon, by the way. 4 or 5 of them in a station wagon.
But I've been in, my parents had a station wagon with fake paneling on the side. Oh yeah,
that was it.
Great memories.
And it was interesting how I never saw him play, but it was interesting how he talked about tennis at the time, and saying things like, "Someday pro tennis is going to be really big." Because at that time it was amateurs. They were all amateurs. If you go back, the Australian players were some of the best tennis players in the world. When they played in championships, they were amateurs, and it took a long time for that to grow to what it is today. And now it's worldwide. Professionals.
Last question: if you go anywhere in the world just for a few days, or rest and relaxation, some R&R, where are you going?
Well, I've been very fortunate when I had a business where I had wonderful trips because I had a lot of money. And so I went to Greece and went to Santorini and Mykonos Island and places like that. Also went to Italy and went to Venice 3 times. Went to Rome. Went to Paris. And because of my aunt, now your question is, well, I want to relax?
Yes.
I would go to Greece.
Okay.
Because number one, it's a really laid-back country, not crowded like Rome or Paris is. I would go there, but I'd also, in my time, now this has been 17 years ago or 16 years ago, when I went to Paris in the spring. And if you go to Paris in the spring, everything is just coming out of its cocoon, and it's beautiful.
Oh, nice.
So it's a city. Where Greece, no city. Relax.
You're on the water though. I'm sure you're getting.
There's beautiful beaches. I mean, a great healthy food of all kinds. Lots of goat cheese and stuff like that. And of course, you can get a book and find a spot and just relax all day
That's
long.
cool.
All right,
Before we dive into a great conversation today, you got your book with you, and you showed me your book, and you've been all over the world, and you've had all kinds of people autograph your book. Who was the very first person to autograph your book?
The very first person to actually autograph my book, and I was invited to come and speak in Columbus, Ohio, when the book first came out in the first week, and the reason is that I was involved, as of course, Breakfast at Sally's is the Salvation Army, and early on when this book first came out in a hardcover edition, the Salvation Army bought 7,000 copies of this book to give to all their big spenders, and they shipped them around the country. And so the book had just come out, and I was in New York City doing a book signing and a couple radio and TV shows. And the guys who arranged for that was a company that did that, and so they asked me. They said, "Well, we just got a call from," because they worked with the Salvation Army a lot. So we just got a call from Columbus, Ohio, and they have a major cancellation of a speaker, and so we can fly you over there, and you can go. You can go speak. And I said, well, cool, and I'll pay you $2,500 to be my first speaking event.
Okay.
and so I said, well, okay. So they got me over there, and they went with me actually. And the first so I had my book, and they set me up at a table in the front place right there. And the next person to come sit down was John Glenn, the astronaut, former astronaut, who's passed away, and his wife Annie. And they sat down right next to me, and I had a little dog with me who was still alive. And so there I had my book, and I said, after we talked and stuff, because he introduced me.
Okay.
And so it was very interesting. So I wanted him to get my signature. So he signed my book, and I thought, well, there's a good reason to have people sign it wherever I go.
There you go.
That was it.
Could you give some of the listening audience may not know who you are, a little brief bio? I have some other questions about Willow and what you've gone through, but a little bio about yourself.
Well, again, I grew up in Ohio, in the Midwest, with my mom and dad. If you read my book, my mom and dad had some things in their life that really affected them greatly. Two of their children died. And one baby was stolen when they lived in Chicago. Chicago was actually stolen by the babysitter, and they never saw her again. So while I was there as a little child, they moved from Chicago because of that. The memories were too strong, so they moved to Urbana, Ohio, small little town, from Chicago to Urbana. And I was spoiled as a child because they were always worried about are we going to lose this one too? But they were smart enough too to realize that they needed me to experience childhood. So that's the reason I brought up talked about the fishing.
Yep.
I'm sure my mom and dad said when I left on my bicycle with a fishing pole over my shoulder with my buddies, they probably thought, oh God, I hope he can come back. But over time, I went, as I said, I was a good high school athlete. I broke the 100-yard dash. 10 point, at that time it was dash, so 10.3 at my high school. And I was on the winning relay team that went to the regional championships when it ran in the 220 and the 440. And so I had a taste of sports. And because of that, I got a job. My first real job, if you want to call it that, was offered to me by the local newspaper there, who also opened up a 1,000-watt radio station, 10,000 watt radio station. They're little, 10,000 small radio stations.
For the town, basically?
Yeah, in the town. And, well, in the restaurant. I mean, once you got for the next town, you were pretty out of
fuzzy.
But small. But anyway, I got a job as the sports director.
That's cool.
Which also worked on Saturday, playing music on Saturday morning too. But and when I say that, I got to cover a lot of high school sports. High school basketball, high school football, And after doing that, if you will, after I got out of college, of course, and did that, then I was going to be a teacher because I was so interested in that before I got the sports job. And then after I got the sports job, then I wasn't making enough money, so I went to a bigger town, which was Springfield, and I ended up getting a sports writing job there. And I did that for 17 years. And so sports writing in that particular day was not as negative as today. If you covered, I mean, if the Seahawks were quote playing, they were, let's go to Ohio State. You never criticized Woody Hayes as a coach.
Yeah, that's in the Bible. Thou shalt not.
Right. Sports writers never said Woody's a bad coach. We need to get rid of him. That wasn't a part of it. The same with a lot of that. Just wasn't it was advantageous, and you wanted to build up the athletes. So if they lost, we'll win the next time. And it's nobody's fault. It's not. This kid dropped 5 passes. Well, you just didn't focus on all that. So, and I really enjoyed doing that for 17 years, covering like everything from sports, from tennis to golf, but after 17 years, I got tired of it. Now, and I also, being very honest, I had a divorce, and because of that divorce, and the issues that went along with it, I had an opportunity to move, which was great because I had traveled around the world a little bit because of sports, at least around the United States because of sports, and I knew places that I liked to go. I was an avid snow skier too, and I liked New Mexico because I liked the warm weather there. For skiing, you're going to, in Taos, New Mexico, you can, within 15 minutes, you can see us being some of the best skiing ever. And the same with the other places I went. And so, but the end result was I had a friend of mine whose father had a business in Seattle, and so I moved there. And 1980 is when I moved there. Seattle was sort of sleepy.
Quiet.
Yeah, it was sleepy at that time. It was a sleepy town, sleepy city, more or less. And so, I mean, you could literally drive from one end of Seattle to the other on 3rd or 4th or 5th Street, and all the way to University District.
Wow.
And with no problems. Now today it's
before or after Mount St. Helens?
Yeah, after.
Okay.
Right after, actually. Within 6 months.
Wow.
Months. And so after that, I luckily, in many cases, looking for jobs because the one that my friend's father had was selling insurance, and I looked at it real close and decided I don't think I want to do that. But I did get some opportunities, and so one of the first opportunities that got me into other doors was I got a job as a fundraiser for the Republican Party.
Oh, wow.
For Ronald Reagan. And so I did that for a little bit, and that opened my door because I met all kinds of people, what you do. I mean, you as a fundraiser, you're going to people who own car dealerships and say, last year you gave us $5,000 or $10,000 or $20,000, so now we need more, And so, as you can see, all the money's been spent in this past.
It's insane.
So money is the food for politics. So I did that, and because I met other people, I got a job as a regional manager for a company called Data National, and Data National did all kinds of medical directories and student directories nationwide. And so as a regional manager, I did that for about a year, and then they decided they didn't want to do that anymore. So we had contracts I had a contract with the University of Washington, which had to be fulfilled, and also a contract with the State Medical Association that had to be fulfilled. And because of that, I just took it over here, in Seattle. And so I did that for 14 years before my business failed, and that's one reason I ended up being homeless. And when my business failed, I ended up get rid of my employees, leave my waterfront home in depression and suicidal, with no sense of direction and fear of life and fear of everything.
Yeah, you kind of lost your home, your family, the whole 9 yards.
The whole thing.
Yeah.
Which, there's a psychologist and psychiatrist will tell you this: if you lose your home, you lose your business, especially when you're 60 years old, 50, 60 years old, and you travel all over the world and you've had all this money, and you lose your family, all those things pretty soon, like the
rope's getting shorter and shorter.
When you get when you lose the top 5, which I did, you've lost it all, and you don't want to live.
Right.
And especially that's the reason why Japanese men, when their business fails, will jump off the top of the building, or put a knife in their heart, because they don't have nothing to live for.
So you were homeless for a number of years. How many years were you homeless?
3. Yeah.
In that time, what did you learn? What did you gather? Did you learn experiences from other people? And
well, yes. First of all, most importantly, I'll say here's what I learned. First of all, I never ever expected to be homeless. I've always had a job. I'd always had success in that job. I mean, covering top athletes, coming out, and getting a business just sort of handed in my lap.
Right.
And then after that, ended up on the street. So I'd gone from meeting people who had a lot of money and worked with people who had a lot of money to people who had nothing. And so the first thing I learned was that makes no difference. Homeless people are wonderful. Homeless people have problems. So do people who have money.
Yeah.
There have been in the history of time, or in our society, modern day business people and stuff like that, who are quite frankly very ruthless, and would fire you in a heartbeat. Let's take Donald Trump for example. If you were working for him and you did what he considered the wrong thing, he'd fire you in a New York minute, which he's done for people, done to people.
Right.
And there are other people too, not just Donald Trump, but other. Just what today, Meta, whatever that is, just laid off 11,000 people. We live in a society where
irreplaceable.
You're irreplaceable. And so I met a lot of people who are in my book, from C to Gentleman J to so many, that as I saw them, again, covering tennis and golf and baseball, Johnny Bench and Pete Rose and those guys, what I saw was a story.
Yeah.
A story that I was involved in. I was homeless, but I didn't see these people as worthless, although I saw myself as worthless, suicidal and worthless. But I saw them and I thought, they're good people. I saw drug addicts then. I could have told you then in 2005 or whatever the year I first became homeless. I could have told you right then that you're going to have a huge homeless population everywhere in the United States, because the stories of how they got there.
Yeah.
Loss of job, loss of home, loss of wife, loss of family. Some had been, and many had been in the military.
Yep.
They had been in Vietnam. They'd been in Mogadishu. They'd been in Iraq. And all these people I met were affected by those parts of our society, and they could never get back. And so I learned that it can happen to anyone, and there's not a lot of help. There's not a lot of help.
A lot of programs and whatnot.
Even today is the same as then. It's back. You're going back when I first became homeless and ended up in Bremerton, Washington. The Salvation Army had a breakfast and lunch 5 days a week, and that's it. Okay. If you had a car, if you were lucky to still have a car, which I did, which I paid, you got gas, $15 a year.
Wow.
A year.
Wow.
There was Chit Chat Community Resources, which is just basically in the past, just started really in a time period there. Same with them. If you had a car, $15 in gas for the year.
Wow.
Churches had dinners. There was at that time, you're going back, 18 years ago now, or 15, whatever it is. There was a dinner out by the Lutheran Church, out by the fairgrounds. There was a dinner on Tuesday night, a dinner on Wednesday night at the Lutheran Church up in Bremerton. Nothing on Thursday.
Just getting connected with these places so you get a hot meal.
Where you can
was
get food,
important.
right.
Right.
And clothes, too. I mean, really. And but I learned, because I was communicative, I still had this ability I learned I could get a shower at the Y. It cost $3, but if I had no money, I'd go in and say, I have no money, but can I get cleaned up?
Right.
And they'd say, yes, no problem.
Wow.
And so I learned to survive, to try and get clean when I could, get food where I could, and almost within 6 months after becoming homeless, I started to write notes to myself about the people that I saw in my thoughts.
Okay.
And so there was the beginning of the book.
And unlike some people who were homeless, had nobody, you had a little companion with you along the way.
Yeah.
When did you and Willow meet? Did you have Willow for a while? Or
When it's sort of one of the last straws of the process, when things were really going bad.
And Willow was your dog, so people were listening, who's Willow?
That's right. That's right. Willow's my dog. But my wife at the time, she could not stand what was happening, and so she had a sister and family down in Texas, and so she came to me. She said, "I can't become homeless. I can't watch this anymore. And so I'm going to move. I'm leaving."
Okay.
And I ended up with a dog. Okay. And so the dog. When I remember distinctly pulling away from my home for the last time with my dog in the front seat of the car. And we then, my dog was my buddy, my friend, and I had to get her food. I had to take care of her, make sure she got out to the parks and stuff like that.
Yep.
And so she was always by my side, and something to live for. Something to live for.
All right.
That something that cared about me, that loved me, and I loved it. And it wasn't going anywhere. He wasn't getting on a car and going to Texas. Okay? He wasn't. I had offered money. There's a story in my book about how I was offered money for the book.
For your dog?
Yeah, for my dog.
Wow.
$2,000.
Wow.
And I said, no way. I'm homeless, but someone says, I'll buy that dog for $2,000. And I said, no, I'm not going to do that. I kept her.
Wow.
So, to me, it was a lifeline.
But how did she help you during this time of homelessness? Did you kind of just, when you were like just depressed, you'd look at your dog going, you know what? Life's not that bad. I'm going through hard times, but I have a companion with me who is with,
Right. And what's so interesting is I did have a van, remember now, so I had wheels. A lot of homeless people that I knew had nothing like that. They lost a car a long time ago. Mm-hmm. So during that time period of 3 years, I never got insurance for my car. I never had tabs or anything else. But I was known. People would say, "Well, there's a church dinner tonight, Saturday night at Mrs. People's Diner, which is in the bottom of the Episcopal Church every Saturday and Sunday. And could you come and get me? I'm living in the woods here with these other 3 or 4 people."
Okay.
So
if you get people and go get a hot meal.
So I got 5 or 6, 7 people in my van, and we're going to the hot meal. And so these people are all homeless, and they've been in the woods across from Chit Chat Mental Health at the time. Mm-hmm. And so after doing this many times, picking up these people, this one very nice man who always tried to get in the front seat of the van where Willow was, and Willow would jump into his lap. So he's got this dog in his lap as we're going to the church dinner. And after many times of doing that, he finally said to me one day, he said, having you pick me up and have Willow jump into my lap is the best moment of my whole week.
Wow.
He said, I look forward to seeing your dog and petting her as we go to the church dinner. So she also, I mean, everybody knew her in town. Everybody knew Richard and Willow after a period of time.
Yeah.
And so that was her. She was my lifeline in many cases. In fact, I have a portrait done by Alan Newberg, who is a well-known artist in Kitsap County, that he drew. He painted it actually. That has the frame of this portrait, which now hangs on above my fireplace, is a picture of me jumping off the bridge with a lifeline coming down with Willow up on top.
Oh, wow.
At the Comaneros Bridge, where, as you know, I tried to take my life.
Yep.
And so, yes, that was my lifeline, and he saw that. So that whole process of Willow keeping me alive, people knew her. And then when I started writing notes a lot, they saw me writing notes like at lunch at the Salvation Army or breakfast at the Salvation Army, writing long hand notes. They said, "What you doing?" I said, "Well, I'm writing a book." And they said, "Am I going to be in it? Are you going to put me in it?" And I said, "Yeah, you're going to be in it. You're going to be in it." Oh, boy. So there was rather excitement about that.
Yeah.
But there also, it takes a long time to write a book, particularly when you're writing it
On the street.
On the street. Right. And you don't have a computer, and you're typing it from a typewriter that you
Was that your dream? Was I'm getting out of this. I won't be homeless forever. Was there a goal you were shooting for, a timeline, or just your memoirs you were taking?
Deep down inside, there was no, there was really no purpose, if you will, in a way, except the fact that I said to myself, people need to know about this.
Yeah.
People need to see this. That's the reason I'm still hoping for a movie of this book.
You never know.
Well, it's possible.
You never know. Yeah.
It's been 4 years ago. A very well-known film director tried to get it done by Sony Pictures and couldn't. And so he tried really hard too. He went down there many times to Sony, and they bought 12 copies of my book, The Decision Makers. And the thing he couldn't get done was a good screenplay. And you have to have Sony told him, you got to have for us to make a movie, you got to have a great screenplay. Okay. They read the book, all 12 decision makers, and all 12 said, yes, we want a movie of this, but he didn't get him a good screenplay, and therefore it fell apart at that time. But
never say never.
Well, yeah, as I said just a few minutes ago, it still remains an issue because people will talk about homeless people as bums and drunks and alcoholics and drug users, and they're throwing needles all around. They're all terrible people, and there are some people who have tremendous
take advantage of that
addictions.
Situation. Yeah.
They have tremendous addictions.
Definitely. Yeah.
And once they get that addiction with some of those needles and stuff like that, it is not.
And the economy is not getting any easier at all.
No.
I work 2 jobs. I'm sure a lot of people out there are working 2, 3, 4 jobs just to make ends meet, put food on the table.
Many of the people I have met through my book or other ways have gone through tough times themselves. Mm-hmm. Some of them are, quote, alcoholics, I'll tell it to you. And they've been going to AA meetings long before my book was out, and still are, because that's the only way they can stop drinking.
Right.
Any kind of issue where it comes along where they might, something bad happens, they get sick, or they're some issue in their a trigger they call it.
Okay.
That they may have not had alcohol for 5 years, but the trigger comes.
Right.
The husband says, "I'm leaving you, honey." That trigger says, "I gotta have a drink. I gotta have something to ease this pain."
Right.
And so, knowing all those issues and how that goes is something that I've learned, and I could have told you then that there'll be more people on drugs because our society has become more and more complicated in that way.
Yeah.
And it's true today. Where are our children, and I say our children, that are 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 20, where are they going to get a home?
Yeah.
In Seattle.
Yeah. I have 3 adult kids still live with me. I'm like, they're all working and I'll help pay rent.
That's right.
I'm renting a house.
And I don't believe any politicians can fix that unless that politician can say, okay, we're gonna have homes now that
Or affordable.
that somebody making $25 an hour can afford.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I had a friend that owned a chain of restaurants, hamburgers, and he said to me when he hired people, he says, I had people come. I put an ad in the paper. People came in and they said, would you like to work I'd like to work at your restaurant. And I said, are you married? Yeah. You got an apartment? Yeah, we do now. Well, you have to realize if you're going to work for me, you're going to make $15 an hour, or $14 an hour, or $12, or whatever it was. Mm-hmm. Your wife has got to make money. You both have to be working full time. Otherwise, I can't hire you, because if I do, within a couple months you're going to disappear. Right. And then I got to hire somebody else. Yeah. So I want to hire somebody. So that was a process. Gotcha. So I learned all that through my growth.
In our conversations of getting prepared for this, you mentioned Willow's mission in Dunkirk, New York.
Yeah,
Sure about that a little bit.
Yeah, well, one of the first things that was most gratifying of writing the book and having it get out into the world was a woman in Dunkirk, New York, read my book, and she was a part of a church. And after she read it, she was so moved. She went to her congregation on the Sunday, and she told me, "I've never stood up in front of my church congregation." She said, "I took your book and I held it up and I said, everybody needs to read this book. We have no homeless shelter here in Dunkirk. We need to have one." And she got her friends involved, and they opened up a shelter. It was really funny how the call came in. I just got back from speaking in Maine, speaking event, and a book signing in Maine. And the day I got back, the phone rang, and this lady was on the phone. She said, introduce yourself, and she said, "I would love to have you come to our church." She said, "We're just opening a homeless mission," and she said, "I did it because of your book." And she said, wow. Dunkirk is a town of about 11,000 people, which is right on Lake Erie. Butts up against another little town called Fredonia, which is about 9,000 people. So they have 20,000 people, we'll say, there with no shelter. So if you get into trouble there, you're off to Buffalo, which it's cold in front. So people have frozen to death.
Wow. On the streets, yeah.
They're frozen to death in Dunkirk.
Wow.
She told me. And so she said, I opened this mission. And she said, could you come and speak? And I did. And the Buffalo newspaper was there. The Buffalo TV station was there. They had a cake made, had Willow's picture on it.
Wow.
And so that's how that was the first of actually 7 homeless type of missions that were opened across the country.
Wow.
And so Willow's legacy lives on.
Yeah.
So not only has she helped Richard LeMieux, but she has helped other people that.
Yeah, you never met
right,
before.
That's right.
Yeah.
Another program in Kent, Washington, called Willow's Place, was started because a woman read the book. And so, what I often find is people will read my book and they'll become emotionally moved, which is good. That can dissipate pretty quickly, because of the way our lives are nowadays. The short attention spans.
We're busy.
Busy, have their own family to take care of. Why should it bother taking care of anybody else? But it has happened, and it will happen again.
How did people treat you when you were homeless? A lot of people get misconceptions of people, on the side of the corner holding a sign, need food. It could be. It's a wide variety of people.
I've begged in front of grocery stores. I begged in front of Central Market in Paulsville, where I had spent, probably a good $200,000 or $300,000 over a 10 or 12 year period, and so I begged in front of there, and they chased me away. I also I went from begged in front of Albertsons there, and when it was Albertsons there, and some people would come and say, "Why don't you get a effing job?" You know, you need an effing job. You know, what are you doing in front of here begging for money? Get a job like I got. I went to different churches, knocked on their door. I knocked on one door at a big church in Bremerton. Actually, I rang the bell because they had a little bell there. It says, if no one, door's locked, ring a bell. A lady came to the door and I said, I told her, I said, I'm homeless and I'm looking for help. And she said, she looked at me and I could just tell she was disgusted. And said, no, we don't have any money for homeless people.
Wow.
I went to another big church and I went into their office, and the person there, a woman, I told her, and she gave me $20. And she said, well, if you come back on Sunday, you can talk to the minister, which I did. And they, after the service was over, the trustees of the church met and with me, and I told them my story and the issues involved. And they said, okay. They said, well, look, we're going to give you $20, but don't ever come back here again. With all that said, I've had a lot of that.
Right.
But I also had help. And for example, not far from here, there's that Methodist church up the street up here. They had, because a woman read my book, again, she got her friends involved, and they went to the pastor of the Methodist church there and said that they wanted to use the kitchen to help make food for the homeless.
Wow.
And it turned into every Tuesday night meal where they had sometimes over 100 people that they would feed in that church. Not all homeless, of course, but it turned into a great community meal.
Right.
So the homeless got fed, and people who were older that had to make a choice between, do I get my medicine or do I have food?
Yeah.
Which is the one. So they ended up getting a wonderful sit-down meal every Tuesday night. And after that was over, often they got what they call to-goes. They got food to go,
Okay.
so they had a meal the next day.
Right.
And they also gave him loaves of bread and pies and all that kind of that they had gone to Safeway and what's across the street? There's a
Grocery outlet there?
yeah. There's a bunch of places
Yeah.
where they would give him food.
Okay.
So they knew that was a holy food. I think they called it hallowed ground.
Okay.
I think that's what it's called. And now they're still doing it, but right now they're still handing out food at the door.
Gotcha.
Because of COVID. So
You got to a point in your life where you didn't feel life was worth living. You got to a point where there was no hope, there was no faith, there was nothing left. You end up being on the Tacoma Narrows Bridge. It was a pretty high bridge. People had never been on it before.
yeah.
Can you share about that? That's from the time you parked your car and the time you returned to your car.
That's right. Well, before I became homeless, I never ever thought that I would have any suicidal thoughts of any kind. And the depression of being on the street after 6 to 7 months was enough for me to slowly but surely realize that life was not worth living. And the reason would be is because I wanted to get back all the things I'd lost. And that is often the thought pattern that leads to suicidal thoughts. I wanted the wife back. I wanted the money back. I wanted the cars back. I wanted the trips back. I wanted the business back. I wanted the respect back.
Yeah.
I wanted all the human emotions. And they weren't coming. And it took me about 7 months to realize they're gone. They're gone, never to be returned.
Right.
And so it was basically around Christmas time that I decided that I would take my life.
This is 2002, correct?
2002. I was living in my car with my dog Willow, and I thought, this is no life for a dog, too. This is going to be our life now. I'm going to go begging everywhere, and I don't want to do that. And my dog should have a family. My dog should have somebody, but I wasn't going to just drop her off at the
pound.
At the pound.
Yeah.
So I thought, well, here's what I'm going to do. So at Christmas Eve of that year, I decided I'd go to the Tacoma Narrows Bridge which I did. At that time, only one bridge there.
Yep.
And there was down below, there was a little road, you could go off the bridge there was a little observation area down below, which I drove down to. And then I put a note on the front dash of my car, on a big piece of paper saying, "This is my dog Willow. When you find her, please love her and take care of her." And then I left the window down, so I had a bowl of water and a bowl of food on the floorboards. And then I closed the door, left it open, but the window's down a little bit. And then I walked out to get up to end my life. And so, I don't know if you've ever walked on that bridge or not.
Never have walked it. I've moved across it a few times, but never have walked it.
Yeah. If you go out there, you'll feel the bridge.
Yep.
There's a lot of
Vibrations.
vibration and noise.
Yep.
And so I got out there far enough to know that if I jumped from there, I would end my life. And so I put my hands on the rail, and and with all that noise and cars going by and the bridge making noise, I could hear my dog barking.
Wow.
Right. Now, that barking started as soon as I left the car. Okay. And so
She knew something was up. She's like, well, something's going down here that's
we've never
not
been
cool.
here before. He's
You're
leaving
right.
me here. There's nobody around.
Dog senses are kicking in.
Right. There's nobody around, and where's he going? You know. And so she's barking and barking and barking. So I get out there far enough where I can't hear her barking. Okay. I can't hear her barking. But when I put my hands on the rail, I could hear her barking. Okay. I could hear the noise. I could hear over all the noise. All I could hear was her barking.
Everything kind of drowned out. All you heard was the barking.
That's it.
Wow.
That's it. I could hear nothing but her barking. And so I thought, I can't do this. I've got to get back and take care of her. You know, I can't leave her there. And so I pushed myself back and literally ran off that bridge back to my van and opened that door, and she jumped in my arms. And I knew at that time there was no way that I could take my life. You know, no way. It couldn't happen.
Right.
I had this dog to take care of. She loved me. She's worth living. And so that's how that night happened. And the next morning, I drove back to Bremerton and began the process of trying to figure out what was going to be next. You know, and I knew one thing: I wasn't going to die. You know,
And that is that when Willow became Willow the Wonder Dog?
That's when she became one of them. Every time I introduced her, every time we got in the car, took homeless people, we went to a meal or wherever it was, that I'd always say, "That's Willow the Wonder Dog," and she would jump in somebody's lap who was in the driver's seat, and she became Willow the Wonder Dog wherever we go. So
Right.
she often would be talked about. You know, if I went to the Salvation Army for lunch and new people came in, people would say, "That's Richard there, and he's got that dog in his car called Willow the Wonder Dog." He's called. And so we became quite famous with the homeless people in Bremerton, Washington. Do you know it was and because of that, when I started writing a book, as I said before, people want to know if they're going to be in it.
Right.
And after a long time, I mean, you're talking about 3 years of writing, pretty much. You know.
Wow.
2 plus, almost 9 months or something like that. There were some people who thought, well, you know, one woman said to me one day, she said, "You know, Richard, you're really not writing a book, are you? And because you just want to be better than everybody else. You just want to tell people you're writing a book." And I said, "No, I really am writing a book." And it wasn't until after the book came out, and it made a big splash because it was in the Kitsap Sun, and you know, it was in the New York Times. It was in the Boston Globe newspaper. It was in San Francisco papers across the country. This man who wrote this book. I was even in National Examiner.
Wow.
You can find it clear back then.
A few years ago.
Yeah. And so this woman came to me one day and she said, "You know, after all this," she said, "I'm so sorry I questioned you about your book, that you were writing a book." She said,
Wow.
She said, "I just couldn't believe it." And she said, "I also didn't ever believe it would happen." And so I said, yeah. I said, I have my doubts myself.
We talked a little bit offline before this conversation. You said Willow had passed.
Yeah.
How was that transition? How long did you have her, first of all?
Well, altogether, she died when she was 13.
13.
Right. And she, when she died, the Methodist Church in Bremerton had a service for her.
That's all.
And people I had met, the public relations director of Microsoft, where I'd spoke, she came, the mayor came, lots of politicians came, and friends and church members. And so during that time period, it was really a struggle for me because she had gone. But by then I was in an apartment, see, and by then...
Your life had taken a
Right.
180, really. From
And so the thing is, she had a carcinoma on her lungs.
Okay.
And so I tried to keep her alive, of course, for me. But I often tell people when their dogs get sick and they have to go, that the pain is over.
Right.
So her pain was over, and I finally realized that it was time for her to go to dog heaven.
Right.
And to tell all the dogs and people in heaven about Breakfast at Sally's. Right?
There you go. Yeah.
And again, you're talking about a dog that's pretty damn famous.
Yeah.
In this Korean edition.
Careful, she'll get a movie before you will.
That's right. In this Korean edition of this book.
Oh, wow.
Which, there she is,
Yeah.
right there on the cover.
Yeah.
Right there. And in this book, at the bottom of every page, you'd be hard to see, but it's there. You see.
And
this book is from Korea. They printed this in Korea, and I got it in the mail, which I didn't know they were even doing it.
How many translations do you have printed of your book?
Well, this one in English, of
two?
course.
Okay.
But I got it was signed by the Republic of Korea, their Consul General, who had read the book, and so not only is that done, but the book has spawned and inspired people to do things that they wouldn't normally do.
Right.
Did I know that when I was writing it? Somewhere deep inside,
I think God had His hand on that, pushing you along the way.
God, yeah.
Just kind of encouraging you not to quit, keep
Right.
moving forward,
Yeah,
and inspire others.
right? Because in my book, when I really got inside where I could really work on it, I lived in a church, the Methodist Church in Bremerton, for 9 months, and there, in the kitchen every night, I was writing, every night on a typewriter.
Typewriter, yeah.
Right, and so it got my book going faster.
Right. I'm curious to know what was the feedback when you received when you got your book written and published. You get a lot of positive feedback, I'm assuming.
Oh, yeah. I mean, when it first came out, as I said, speaking event in Columbus, Ohio, I'm replacing the woman that was fell down and broke her leg. She was the heavy. I try to remember her name. She's the heavyset black lady that was a star on the movie called Touched by an Angel.
Okay.
And what is her name?
Della Reese.
That's her. She was going to be the speaker. And another funny
That
story.
came out of nowhere, by the way.
That's right. She was going to be the speaker for that big Salvation Army fundraising event in Columbus, Ohio, in which I ended up subbing.
Oh, wow.
Now, of course, Della Reese everybody knew Della Reese, but so they gave me a check for $2,500 after I spoke. But one of the things that's really funny is that the public relations person for the Salvation Army in Columbus, Ohio, who had arranged to have John Glenn introduce me.
Right.
She said, "Boy," she said, "I was really surprised how good you were." She said, "You were better than Della, I bet." And I said, "Well, thank you." She said, "And we were going to pay her $35,000."
Wow!
And I thought, wait a minute.
I got the Gibson.
I got the $2,500, and you're going to pay her and I realized she's got the notoriety. So,
did you ever realize how impactful your book could be?
it still is.
Still is, right.
It's just as relevant.
Especially in today's society.
Right. And one of the things I should tell you about that real quickly is that I still am speaking on schools. So I go to schools, high schools to speak, colleges to speak, and my most my greatest impact, if you want to call it that, the thing I see the most is that in my group mission is that I have over 2,000 letters from high school students.
Wow.
From high schools, not only all the kids have high schools here, but also where I speak at classes. But high school like Capitol High School in Olympia, and Interlake High School in Bellevue. And what happens is the school gets a class set of books, the students read it, and then ask me, and then I come and speak, and then I ask them to write me a letter, not on the computer, but handwritten.
Right.
Handwritten, just like I wrote this book.
Old school handwritten. Right.
And so I get letters, 2,000 of those plus, and so just a real quick. I won't read this whole letter, but this is one of 2,500 here. This one says, "Reading your book is like reading no other book I have ever read. The stories that you have in your book touch me to my deepest levels." This is a high school student.
Wow.
"I have come to the realization that I have the deepest compassion for homeless people. I am going to do my very best not to become homeless myself. I'm going to try to do good in school. I think that your story is wonderful, and I think that you have had a very amazing journey."
Keep going.
There you go.
All right. So you've done speaking engagements all over the world, and when someone reaches out to you to share your story, do you kind of take a step back, going, "Is this real? Are you picturing yourself still today of the impact this book has made in people's lives?"
Yeah, very much so. It is it's a very humbling process. The natural tendency is for the ego to say, "Wow, this is cool," and I try not to say how wonderful it is. I mean, this has become, and I've had people ask me this, that, would you, if I was a wizard and I could send you back to your home with all the things you had before, the 3 boats, the cars, and the trips, which would you take? That or what you're doing today? I say I would take what I'm doing today.
Wow.
Even though I'm not a rich man, I don't make a lot of money, but what I do is important.
Right.
And I know it has changed lives, where nothing wrong with being rich, nothing wrong with having all those things, but this book and the things that go with it are the only meaningful thing I've ever done in my life.
Wow.
The rest was all about me.
Yep.
Right? And it was all about me. Have a car, get what I want, go here, go there, take care of my family, which is good. Nothing wrong with all that. But in terms of something meaningful, this is it. This is as good as it gets. You know?
This is kind of where I did the podcast. Really, my goal was to encourage people.
Yeah.
Any way I could. Meeting people, talking to people, musicians, comedians. Everyone has a story.
That's right.
And how your story impacts someone, you'll never know. You're planting seeds.
Right.
And that I just think it's so critical today. Everyone has a story to share.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the thing is, people don't know. Putting yourself in somebody else's shoes is an old saying. You know, it goes clear back to the Indian.
Yep.
You put yourself in another person's moccasins. So it's really difficult to understand the issue in a country that has so much wealth, that we have people living on our streets. You know, people in other countries look at that and say, you know, wow, you know, why do you have so many people living on your streets? And there are reasons. There are some people that because of certain circumstances, what is going on in their life, they don't want any contact with any human being, actually, if it's up to them. So it's hard to get the hardcore homeless man or woman off the street, particularly if they have some sort of mental health issues, and we understand that. But there are so many, though, that I would say the same thing nowadays. The best thing you can do to help homelessness is to make sure that nobody becomes homeless, because when the first time that happens to them, that's a hard road.
Yeah.
For many people. They'll never end up in a good situation.
Yep.
And so that's it. And that's the problem today, is that it was a problem when I first became homeless, and it's still a problem today. When you first became homeless and you go looking for help, it's hard to find.
Right. Are there resources now to help homelessness? People get off the streets and get the help they need, food stamps and food and stuff like that?
There's some of that.
Okay.
And there's some issues, or sometimes, but I will say that, like for example, in Kitsap County, it's better off in say Kent or Renton or some other places for taking care of their homeless, because over the past years there has been a spotlight shining on what needs to be done.
Right.
And I can proudly say some of that is because of my book. Right.
As we wrap up, any words of encouragement for someone out there who's going through those hard times and the verge of homelessness and the finances going through the roof?
Right.
Any words of encouragement?
I would say the same thing. Never give up. Never give up. Try and over and over again, try to find your place where you can work with people that can help. And that comes from, never giving up. Finding a church maybe, a church group maybe. Just like tonight's going to be cold. So there's a cold weather shelter. And while you're there at the cold weather shelter, which is in a church in most cases, the people that are there, ask them, have you got a job I could do? Have you got something I could do where I can make a little money?
Right.
Maybe clean the church, or do your lawn, or do something. And sometimes you'll find a person that really can help you, particularly if they see that you're trying. And I believe, again, I believe in our country, in our county, and our city, we can get every single homeless person off the street. It can't happen. Yeah. Even those that are really hardcore with needles, it can't happen. But it takes a lot of work, and the people that have mental health issues or drug addiction, those are the hardest ones to help.
Yeah.
And it could have been me if I hadn't lucked out in many ways, meeting people and ended up living in a church for a while. I wouldn't be here today.
All right. Yeah. But thanks so much for the time and meeting me for coffee, and I wish you nothing but the best, continued success in your book and sharing your story. And this is Richard LeMieux, Breakfast at Sally's Chit Chat. Thank you to Richard LeMieux today for having a fun conversation with me, sharing about his book, Breakfast at Sally's. And it's really encouraging. He showed me his book, his first one he got printed, and it's just full of autographs. People who have met him along the way, who have read his book and have heard about him and the inspiration he's making on people, and they've signed his book. He asked me to sign his book as well. So, and there John Glenn signed it, and many, many others. It's really, really cool. I also asked him at the end, offline, has he able to reconcile with his wife and with his family, and he has his kids all live here locally, and he has grandkids now, and I think that was really, really cool that be able to do that. His book is impacting people, and you can find his book, order his book on Amazon, on Target, and Walmart, and truly an inspirational book. And he's working on writing another one. I think we could have talked another hour or so, but it was I just loved talking with him, hearing his heart and where he's been to and where he's been through, and just such a powerful story. And maybe one day his book will be on the big screen. This is Jody Sheffield, host of Chit Chat, the encouraging one other podcast, where it's always about, you got it, encouraging others.
After these messages,
Are you craving tacos? You know what? It doesn't have to be Tuesday to have tacos. You got tacos any day of the week. At TaquizaTacoShop.com, that's TAQUIZA, tacoshop.com, they have 5 kinds of tacos. Delicious tacos, as well as chimichangas and burritos and grilled jalapenos, my favorite. Their food's fresh, authentic, made daily. They're locally owned and operated here in Silverdale, Washington. They got a food truck and a Facebook page. You can go online and check out their amazing menu. Getting you hungry? You can place an order today at 360-698-4335, or you can stop by and check out their address. Is 10315 Silverdale Way, Silverdale, Washington. As I said, it's authentic, it's fresh, and 5 kinds of tacos. Delicious. That's Taquiza. TaquizaTacoShop.com. Every day is a day for tacos. Are you craving donuts? Not those one bite and done donuts that's been sitting on your local grocery store shelf for who knows how long donuts. No, sir. Lone Star Donuts here in Silverdale, Washington has over 50 flavors of donuts and other pastry items as well. These donuts are huge, fluffy, and delicious. So why not stop by and check out Lone Star Donuts? Or you can call them and place your order at 360-204-5021. Lone Star Donuts, the only kind of donut to have. I can't wait for my next guest next week as I get to talk to an inspirational woman who is doing amazing things, missing something that we take for granted. She has no arms. Here's a short video about Jessica Cox, born without any arms.
The words "I can't" are just an excuse for giving up. Ever since I was a kid, people always doubted what I could do. I think limits are just meant to be overcome.
Jessica is most famous for being the first armless pilot in aviation history to fly using only their feet. She also has an unrestricted driver's license. She's a certified scuba diver. She has a bachelor's degree in psychology. She's a 3rd degree black belt in Taekwondo and certified trainer.
She's pretty unstoppable. When people see me, they immediately look at the fact that I don't have arms. And I think there's a parallel with the way people see challenges. They immediately see either the difficulty or the impossibility. We're actually early for once. I never felt pity for myself. That was one thing I never did. I felt angry and I felt frustrated about my birth condition. There wasn't a specific moment for me when it turned from being an angry, frustrated girl to a woman with confidence. It was just a journey. It was little things that happened along the way. The first day of 8th grade, I was 14, and I decided to give up my fake arms, which I wore to school for 11 years. But the moment I made that decision to leave them behind and finally accept who I am, that for me was a huge step to understand that it's not about how people respond to me, it's how I carry myself. There's something I want to do. I don't think about the process. I think of the end result. She's constantly adapting and finding new ways to do things. As early as I can remember, I've had to prove myself. It's something I'm prepared to do. Over, through, and pull to tighten. And just like that, I tied my
your
shoes
with her feet.
After a couple hundred tries, figured out the importance of thinking outside the shoe.
From the moment she was born at the hospital, I'll say it like this, her little round eyes would just look like she's going to attack the world, you know. And she had been attacking it ever since.
Some of the things in my life and challenges I've had to fight for. As a result of the doubt that remains in people's minds as to whether I can safely and appropriately conduct myself in the way that people in a two-handed world would. I had to fight to have an unrestricted driver's license because I wanted to drive an unmodified vehicle. I have to have the ability to just pick up a rental car anywhere because during my speaking engagements, I'm in cities all over the world. There are encounters that I have with people in the public who aren't always comfortable with someone who's different. And I use it as an opportunity to show them that it's okay to be different. And everyone's different. And we just have to be confident in our differences. Thank you. Okay.
Jessica is there to constantly be a reminder of don't let assumptions of people who don't understand what you're capable of hold you back.
If I hear people use the words I can't, I like to remind them that those words will limit you. You can stop yourself from saying those words. You would be surprised at what's possible.
I can't wait to talk with her and get her amazing story here on the Chit Chat Encouraging One Another podcast. What's always about encouraging others. This is my good friend Joel Gibson Jr. called The Gift, and you can check out his website at joelgibsonjrmusic.com.
I just got the news today that my life's gonna change. I got a little boy on the way. I'm a little scared, but I know it'll be okay. And I can't see you, but I know you're on the way. And I can't wait to see your smiling face and hold you in my arms and watch you while you sleep. And all the while knowing that you're the gift God gave me. I've never been the kind to ask for much. Just wanted to be a dad and have someone to love. And now I got all I'll ever need. I got your mom and I love you both eternally. And I can't see you, but I know you're on the way. And I can't wait to see your smiling face and hold you in my arms and watch you while you sleep. All the while knowing that you're the gift God gave me. know it won't be long before I watch you drive on out of town. But just like the image in your rear view, son, I'll always have you back, no matter what you go through. 'Cause I wanna see you grow into a man one day, and I can't wait for you to have kids one day and hold them in your arms, watch them while they sleep, so you know the feeling that holding you gave me.
That was Joe Gibson Jr., The Gift.
Thank you so much for being part of the Chit and Chat, encouraging one another family as I share stories from people all around the world, music, and if I can encourage one person out there, that's all that matters to me. Thank you so much for the many listeners who popped us on when they're driving, stuck in traffic, who are maybe working. It's by no means a perfect podcast. I have some editing issues sometimes, and it just things happen. But you can guarantee that this podcast speaks from the heart, hopefully to your heart. And just want to thank you so much for listening to this podcast.
This is Chit Chat, the encouraging one other podcast. What it's all about, encouraging others.